Back on the record in cause number 330-896, case is styled the state of Texas versus Randall Lee Stewart. Mr. Stewart, you were previously sworn in, and the court was in the process of reading the information. I will read that information to you again. In cause number 330-896, the information alleges that on or about July 15 of 2021, that you committed the Class A misdemeanor offense of resisting arrest, search, transportation. Mr. Stewart, do you understand what you've been charged with?
Yes.
And to this charge, how do you plead? Guilty, not guilty, no contest?
Guilty.
Now, are you pleading guilty freely and voluntarily?
Yes.
And are you pleading guilty because you're guilty?
Yes.
Okay, now, Mr. Stewart, I have before me a document that is titled Misdemeanor Plea Admonishments. On page 2 of this document, there are a set of initials on a line next to a box that's checked guilty. Mr. Stewart, these initials are RLS. Did you place your initials on this document?
Yes.
And on page 3 of the same document, Mr. Stewart, there's a signature above the line that's titled Defendant. Did you sign this document? Mr. Stewart,
Yes.
Okay, now on the next document, which is titled Trial Court Certification of Defendant's Right of Appeal, there is a signature at the bottom of this document above the line that's titled Defendant. Did you also sign this document?
Yes.
And there are 2 boxes that are checked at the top of this document. The first box check states that this is a plea bargain case and you have no right of appeal. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Second box states that you are waiving your right to appeal, which means you're giving up your right to an appeal. Do you understand that?
Yes.
And Mr. Stewart, the next document states that, well, Mr. Stewart, did you sign a document out there that is titled Discovery Certification?
I believe so.
Okay, you say it was on a piece, it was on a paper. And Mr. Stewart, prior to signing and initialing all of these documents that I have mentioned, did your attorney go over these documents with you?
Yes.
And did you read and understand everything in these documents?
Yes.
And is everything in these documents true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart, state, do we have a plea bargain? I mean, do you have state's exhibit number 1 you'd like to offer?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any objections, Mr. Reynolds?
No objection, Judge.
No objection, state's exhibit number 1 will be admitted. Mr. Reynolds, you've advised and counsel Mr. Stewart, is there any evidence that he's currently mentally incompetent to stand trial?
None to my knowledge, Judge.
Stewart, your attorney, Mr. Reynolds, has advised and counseled you. Are you satisfied with his representation?
Yes.
Has he provided full, effective, and competent legal representation?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart, I will accept your plea of guilty. I will find that you are mentally competent to stand trial. I will also find that your plea of guilty and waivers were freely and voluntarily given. State, do we have a plea bargain agreement?
Yes, Your Honor.
What is that agreement?
It's going to be 25 days county jail, credit for time served of 25 days, the court costs to be taxed and retired. And it's also going to run concurrently, number 331022.
Okay. Mr. Stewart, the state is offering that you serve 25 days in the Jefferson County Jail. However, you will not have to serve any more time in the Jefferson County Jail because you've already served 24 days in Jefferson County Jail. Therefore, you'll be given credit for time served. The court cost in this case is $327, but you will not have to pay the court cost because the time that you spent in jail has already paid it off. Therefore, the court cost will be taxed and retired. In this case, Mr. Stewart, will run concurrent with cause number 331022. Mr. Stewart, do you understand the state's offer?
Yes.
And do you think that the state's offer in your case is fair and just?
Yes.
And do you accept the state's offer?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart, I'll follow the plea bargain agreement that you have entered into with the state. Now, Mr. Stewart, we'll move on to your next case. Your next case, Mr. Stewart, is cause number 331022. And I have before me, in that case, an information that alleges that on or about September 22nd of 2021, while you were in Jefferson County, Texas, that you committed the Class B misdemeanor offense of possession of a controlled substance, penalty group 2A. Mr. Stewart, do you understand what you've been charged with?
Yes.
And to this charge, Mr. Stewart, how do you plead? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest?
Guilty.
Now, you pleading guilty freely and voluntarily?
Yes.
And are you pleading guilty because you are guilty?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart, I have before me a document that is titled the Misdemeanor Plea Admonishments. On page 2 of this document, let me see, this is actually on page 1 of this document, there's a box that's checked Class A misdemeanor. Mr. Reynolds, do I have your permission to correct the class
Yeah.
or the punishment that is set at?
It should be Class B, Judge.
Yes. Mr. Stewart, do I have your permission as well to check off the Class B misdemeanor box?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Stewart, the range of punishment for Class B misdemeanor is confinement in jail for a term not to exceed 180 days, a fine not to exceed $2,000, or both such confinement and fine. Do you understand the range of punishment for a Class B misdemeanor?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Mr. Stewart, also on page 2 of this document, there's a signature. Actually, you put your name Randall. You got your initials on here.
So I tried to undo it that I could put RLS. I put down Randall on accident, thinking to put down my signature.
Right.
RLS is my signature though.
Yeah, I understand that. Now, on page 3 of this document, you that's your signature, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, on page, okay, let me go to the next document. On the next document, which is titled the Misdemeanor Plea Admonishment, there's a signature above the line that's titled Defendant. Did you place your signature on this document?
Yes.
And on the next on the same document, but at the top of this document, there are 2 boxes that are checked. First box check states that this is a plea bargain case and you have no right of appeal. Do you understand that?
Yes.
The second box that's checked states that you are waiving your right to an appeal. Do you understand that?
Yes.
And did you sign a document out there that is titled Discovery Certification?
Yes.
Okay, now, Mr. Randall, the state is going to send, Mr. Reynolds, the state is going to send that document back to you where he needs to sign his, you need to put his initials on the misdemeanor plea admonishment on page 2 on the line that says guilty. State is sending that back to you. Just hold on a minute.
I apologize. I didn't see anything to reset that I could put my initials, and he
Okay.
asked for it. So
Well, that's fine.
As long as he's out of it.
Yeah, I'm out of it.
Okay, Randall. Here. Go put your initials down there by that check. On that line.
thank you very much. There we go.
Okay.
And then this is all Randall Lee Stewart. So
RLS, of course.
You're gonna send it back. It'll come back to me, right?
I believe so, Judge. Yes, sir.
Once it goes at the top, I think.
Judge, it hit the button and shut the tab down, so I'll have to bring it back up.
Oh, okay. No problem.
Okay, Randall. Here, put your initials on there again. Hey, Judge, let's send it.
Okay. I have it. Okay, Mr. Stewart, I have before me the document, misdemeanor plea admonishments, which is state's exhibit number 1. And on page 2, hold on a minute. And I have before me state's exhibit number 1, the misdemeanor plea admonishment. On page 2, there are a set of initials, RLS. And did you place your initials on this document?
Yes,
And you signed page 3 above the line that's titled defendant on the same document. Is that correct?
yes,
Now, Mr. Stewart, prior to signing and initialing all these documents that I've just mentioned, the misdemeanor plea admonishment, trial court certification of defendant's right of appeal, and the discovery certification, did your attorney go through these documents with you?
yes,
And did you read and understand everything in these documents?
yes,
And is everything in these documents true and correct to the best of your
Yes.
knowledge? State, I have before me state's exhibit 1. State, you like to offer state's 1?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any objections, Mr. Reynolds?
There are no objections, Judge.
No objections. State's exhibit number 1 will be admitted. Mr. Reynolds, you've advised and counseled Mr. Randall in this case. Is there any evidence that he's currently mentally incompetent to stand trial?
None to my knowledge, Judge.
And Mr. Stewart, your attorney, Mr. Reynolds, has advised and counseled you. Are you satisfied with his representation?
yes,
Has he provided full, effective, and competent legal representation?
yes,
Mr. Stewart, I will accept your plea of guilty. I will find that you are mentally competent to stand trial. I will also find that you plead guilty and waiver for freely and voluntarily given state. Do we have a plea bargain agreement?
Yes, Your Honor.
What is that agreement?
25 days county jail. Mr. Stewart has credit for 25 days. So corporate cost to be taxed and retired.
Mr. Stewart, this,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Slow down.
And Judge, it'll also run concurrently with cause number 330-896.
Mr. Stewart, the state is offering that you serve 25 days in Jefferson County Jail. However, you will not have to serve any more time in Jefferson County Jail on this case because you've already served 25 days. Therefore, you give them credit for time served. The court cost in this case is $327 but you will not have to pay the $327 because the time that you spent in jail has already paid it off. Therefore, the court costs will be taxed and retired. Mr. Stewart, do you understand the state's offer?
Yes,
And do you think that the state's offer in your case is fair and just?
yes,
And do you accept the state's offer?
yes.
Mr. Stewart, I'll follow the people are in agreement that you have entered into with the state. Mr. Stewart, this will conclude your cases. Please follow the bailiff and you have a blessed day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Walters. Walters? Okay, this is the one that was from last week.
Yes, sir.
So you straighten it out. You straighten the code out, right?
Sorry.
This is the one that they had that family violence on, but they had to straighten the code. Wait, you want
Yes.
it?
Mhm.
Okay.
That's.
Oh, but you did it, yeah. The court is in session in cause number 330908. The case is styled the state of Texas versus Percy Edward Walters. Mr. Walters, is that your full name?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Walters, would you please raise your right hand? Mr. Walters, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Mr. Walters, you may put your hand down. How are you doing, Mr. Walters?
All right.
Andre. Mr. Walters, I have before me a document that is titled The Information. This information alleges that on or about September 19th of 2021, while you were in Jefferson County, Texas, that you committed the Class B misdemeanor offense of communication harassment. Mr. Walters, do you understand what you've been charged with?
Yes, sir.
And to this charge, Mr. Walters, how do you plead guilty, not guilty, or no contest? Now, are you pleading guilty freely and voluntarily?
Yes, sir.
And are you pleading guilty because you are guilty?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Walters, I have before me a document that is titled the Misdemeanor Plea Admonishment. It's also labeled as State's Exhibit number 1. On page 2 of this document, there are a set of initials, PW, on a line next to a box that's checked guilty. Did you put your initials on this document?
Yes, sir.
And on the next page of the same document, there's a signature above the line that's titled Defendant. Did you sign this document?
Yes, sir.
And on page, well, on the next document, which is titled Trial Court Certification of Defendant's Right of Appeal, there's a signature above the line that's titled Defendant. Did you sign this document?
Yes, sir.
And at the top of this document, Mr. Walters, there are 2 boxes that are checked. The first box that's checked states that this is a plea bargain case and you have no right of appeal. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
And the second box that's checked states that you are waiving your right to an appeal, which means you're giving up your right to an appeal. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Walters, did you sign a document out there on paper that is titled misdemeanor, well, that is titled Discovery Certification? Mr. Walters, did you sign a document out there on paper that is signed, that is titled the Discovery Certification?
Yes, sir.
Now, Mr. Walters, prior to signing and initialing these documents that I have just mentioned, did your attorney, Mr. Reynolds, go over these documents with you?
Yes, sir.
Did you read and understand everything in these documents?
Yes, sir.
And is everything in these documents true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, sir.
Let me see if he has a affidavit. Mr. Walters, well, state, would you like to offer State's Exhibit number 1?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any objections, Mr. Reynolds?
No objections, Judge.
No objections. State's Exhibit number 1 will be admitted. Mr. Reynolds, you've advised in counsel, Mr. Walters, is there any evidence that he's currently mentally incompetent to stand trial?
None to my knowledge, Judge.
Mr. Walters, your attorney, Mr. Reynolds, has advised in counsel you. Are you satisfied with his representation?
Yes,
You have to
sir.
speak up. Has he
Yes, sir.
provided full, effective, and competent legal representation?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now, Mr. Reynolds, are you waiving a record in Mr. Walters' case?
Yes, so waived, Judge.
Mr. Walters, I will accept your plea of guilty. I will find that you are mentally competent to stand trial. I will also find that your pleas and waivers were freely and voluntarily given. I will also find that there is sufficient evidence to find you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. State, do we have a plea bargain agreement?
Yes, Your Honor.
And what is that agreement?
40 days county jail.
Okay, Mr. Walters, the state is offering that you serve 40 days in the Jefferson County Jail. Mr. Walters, you will be given credit for any time that you are entitled to get by law. Mr. Walters, the court cost in this case is $327. Mr. Walters, will you be able to pay the $327?
I can't pay that till I get out and go to work.
Okay. Now, Mr. Walters, I have before me a document that is titled Affidavit of Indigence. And let's see. Apparently, this document was signed by Judge Rob Posh on November 14th of 2021. And on this document, it states that you had insufficient income. And is that still your status?
Right now, I work for a moving company when
Okay. So my question is, so you still have insufficient status? I mean, income?
yes, sir.
Okay,
Right now.
so based on the finding of Judge Rob Posh, the court is going to find that you are indigent. Judge Rob Posh said that you met the eligibility requirements. And therefore, this court is going to find that you met the eligibility requirements based on Judge Posh's findings. So therefore, you're still indigent. And because you are indigent, the court cost in this case of $327 will be waived, which means that you will not have to pay it. And that's pursuant to Article 42.15 of the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure on the finding that you are indigent. Mr. Walters, I'll just repeat to you, the state is offering 40 days to be served in Jefferson County Jail. You'll be given credit for any time that you're entitled to get by law. Court cost in this case is $327, but you will not have to pay it because the court is finding that you're indigent, and so pursuant to Article 42.15 of the Code of Criminal Procedure, the court cost is being waived. Now, Mr. Walters, do you understand the state's offer?
Yes, sir.
Do you think that the state's offer and the waiver of community service, the waiver of court costs is fair and just?
Yes, sir.
And do you accept the state's offer?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Walters, I'll follow the plea bargain agreement that you've entered into with the state. Mr. Walters, this will conclude your case. Please follow the bailiff, and you have a blessed day.
You too.
That's it?
Rita?
Oh, yeah, that's it?
Well, that's all the pleas that are ready, but there's still some people on the docket. I don't know what the plan.
Hold on a minute.